if you'll remember back a little ways back, I did a build on my grapple for my Bobcat, and it's been working pretty dang good for the most part. I did have to add these pieces right here because when it would come back, it would pinch the hoses. So I got all that worked out and routed, but the other day I was using it, and lo and behold, my welds, they didn't hold up on this upper deal. It cracked in several spaces. It cracked down here on the bottom. So what I need to do is I need to grind these welds off and re-weld those. I think part of the problem before when I was building this, aside from me not being a very good welder, is these were probably cold welds. It was probably the beginning of welds on these pieces when I was doing it. But I'm going to get in there and grind them out real good, and I'm going to go ahead and lace them as hot as I can get my welder and weld them up tight. And the other project I'm going to try to do is on this bucket right here. I want to replace the lower piece. Somebody has scabbed a bunch of metal in there, and I've got a piece that I bought that will fit in there, and I've got a new blade to put on the front of it. So we might get that on this video here as well. So come along, we're going to get started on it. So I'm a little torn as to put grease on these pins and on those pivot points. What do y'all think? I mean, if you have grease on, it attracts dirt. And I'm not using it like a contractor would, just constantly. And I'm just so afraid that it would attract all the dust and dirt and cause it to wear even sooner. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think about that. Okay, so this is the voltage on it. I've got it all the way cranked as high as it'll go, and I'll play with the wire speed a little bit here. But she's as high as it'll go. I don't know, you think that would work. I mean, I got it as high as it'll go. I increased the wire speed on this other one, and it looks like it's a little too much maybe. So I'm going to back the wire speed back down. So against my better judgment, I'm going to put some white lithium grease on the pivots right here. Alright, that works pretty good now. So one thing, I don't know if I mentioned it in a previous video in building this, I should have made these half of that height. Then I could have made this part half of its height where the hydraulic ram mounts on, because it puts a ton of pressure on it going back with that length like that. So if I had to do it over again, this would be much shorter. These would be just right up off the bottom of this. So let's move on to this little bucket over here. So I think what I'll do before I get the cutting torch out, I'm going to put a cutting wheel on this and see if I can just cut the welds off of these little bottom supports. Cut the weld right here on either side, and then just cut a nice straight line right across here and all the way across the back. Look at the shape of that knife. I don't know if you can see it in there, but it's curved like this. A little unusual. I think that you would think it would need to be straight and flat so that it doesn't try to dig down into the dirt just on its own. But the one that I have for this, it's a 10-foot long piece. I'll cut a section out. It'll be flat when I get done with it. cleaned up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and measure from outside to outside and make a piece that's perfectly square to fit within here. And it's going to have to come all the way up to the front, I'm pretty sure. Even though I'm going to put the hardened steel blade on the front, I'm going to carry it to the front and then weld it, tack weld it to the top of this. And I'll have to lift these up to get up underneath here. But let's take some measurements first. 59.5. Alright, I got this piece of metal laid on here, and it's square cut, and I've checked the angles, everything is perfectly square. So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna tack this corner here, and then I'm gonna cut out a little area right here so this side cutter can kind of fit in there like that. And I'm gonna tack all that in place. I'll pull this way a little bit because you can see it's not quite square with this. It's perfect here. And what I'll do is I'll pull this piece over to this, make that square. Then I have probably an inch I need to cut off this straight down here, square to this back edge. And then I'll cut the front right across here. And then I'll cut this cutting edge to length and weld it on. So I'm thinking theoretically, if this whole piece is square, and if I want to make the bucket square on the bottom, I can come up here, come right to this edge with my square, cut a straight line down here, and then cut my notch out just like I did on the other side after I get the cut here. Then it looks like I'm gonna have to push this one back that way a little bit to make it square. So let's cut this first. 59 1/4. I want the cutting blade to fit between these side cutters. I'm going to weld them solid right here and round it off to kind of match that. Alright, so on this cutting edge here, it looks like the steel place that made these for somebody. I don't know if this was for a big bucket on a loader. I don't know. He had like 10 of these, and they were painted yellow on the end, and I'm assuming that it's a hardened steel. They chamfered both edges for this customer, and I guess the customer backed out on it. This was 75 cents a pound for this cutting edge material, so I bought one of these. But you can see the weird hole setup on these. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it here, and then the middle of it is gonna be the middle of these two holes, and then cut it right here on this edge. That'll give me the length that I need to go between those two pieces. I'm not sure how to cut it. I'm going to try to use my bandsaw, see if the bandsaw can get through it. If the bandsaw can't get through this, then I guess I'm going to have to torch it. Because as you can see, this little small plasma cutter I bought, I think I paid $125 for this little plasma cutter. You get much thicker than what we've got right here, and it just has a hard time cutting it. I kind of wish I'd have bought a heavier duty one, but man, they are expensive. So anyway, we'll get the torch out. First I'll get the bandsaw out, see if it'll cut it, then I'll get the torch out if it won't. Well, she's all done. It turned out pretty good. Put a little black paint over all the welds. Looks pretty good. So let's take it out to pairing.